Today we're going to continue my assessment of different writing tips that have been given by famous authors. And today we're going to be talking about a writing tip that I actually like a lot. And it's for a very good reason. I actually see this happen in my own writing process, and I think you should actually implement this in your own as well. So the writing tip is to build yourself up to the actual writing process. Welcome to How to Write Good. I am your host, Daniel Poppie. You can find out more about me at danielpoppie.com. If it is your first time here, How to Write Good is a writing podcast that seeks to find principles and advice that can be applied across a broad range of writing situations. If you've been here before, don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button below, and share. What do you do when you're not actually in the process of writing? What do you do outside of your writing? You've probably got planning to do for your book. You've got planning to do in your own life. You've probably got some reading to do because you want to keep up on what other writers are doing so that you can see whether or not you want to integrate what they are doing into what you are doing and give it your own little flavor, right? You've got outlining. Your kids have a dirty diaper. If you're younger, your sibling's oboe probably needs breaking. Seriously, your sibling's oboe probably needs breaking if they play the oboe. One thing that I do when I am outside of the actual writing process is I walk myself through my scenes. So I imagine what is going to happen in each scene. I've talked about this in the past as well in a different way. I've talked about this idea that you are putting on the mask of that character. You are acting your way through the scenes of that character. You're trying to get into the head of that character. And then you imagine what is happening or what you see when you go through that scene. And then you imagine how that scene plays out in your head. So I see the character's movement. I hear their words. I hear how they talk to one another. I imagine what their faces look like, etc. Anything that is going to be in that scene can be something that I am picturing in my mind outside of the actual writing process. If you are doing anything that does not require a lot of thinking, you can do this as well. If you are having trouble falling asleep, you might want to try to imagine yourself walking yourself through your scenes. Denis Johnson, who gives this piece of writing advice to build yourself up to the actual writing process, builds himself up to the process in a different way than what I just talked about. What he does is he sits down to write, and he doesn't see the initial stage of writing as actual writing. He messes around with stuff. He plays. That's really what he's doing. He putters, he tinkers, he tries different voices, he tries different dialogue with characters, he tries different descriptions, etc. That's what he said that he does when he actually starts the writing process. And I think this is really powerful if you want to approach it in the same way as him. I think this is really powerful because it loosens people up. It gets them into that mindset of playing rather than working, and writing should be in the sphere of play as far as I can see. I know someone might disagree with that idea. Some people might think, oh, you just need to get down and you just need to start writing, and there are certainly times when you need to do that. But I think that the best writing is in kind of a flow state, and I think a flow state is essentially play, especially for adults. So I think that he and I are actually doing the same thing in different ways. So what I said before is I imagine myself walking through a specific scene, and then he actually sits down and writes things on paper. But he isn't putting anything down that is going to last. He isn't saying, oh, whatever I write is going to end up being what is going to be my final draft or even my first draft. What he is saying is he gets to play around with how things work out. And what I do when I walk myself through that scene, when I actually go through the process of daydreaming my scene, is playing. I'm trying things out. I'm seeing how things might look. I'm seeing how characters might interact, etc. And I think this piece of writing advice, to work yourself up to the process of writing, is very good advice for, how many reasons do I have here? It's very good advice, and the reason why I think it is because most people do not know what to write, okay? When people sit down to write, there's often this thing that they have where they don't know what to write at all. It's a very famous thing, and we actually have a word for it. It's called writer's block. By building yourself up to the process of writing, whether you're doing it through Denis Johnson's way where you're tinkering, or whether you're doing it through my way, you're either loosening yourself up and allowing yourself to try different things out, or you are imagining what's going on. And in both of these instances, you are exploring what you can do, and you'll have more to work with when you get serious about writing. When you get serious about that specific act of writing is what I mean. I'm not saying that you're not serious about writing at this time. So again, just to reiterate that, when you go through either of these processes, you are giving yourself information to work with. You are giving yourself ideas to work with that you can put into your writing. And I think if you do this in some way, it might not even be the ways that I'm talking about. It might not be tinkering. It might not be imagining what's going on in the scene. It might be listening to music. It might be outlining. It might be having a very brief sketch of the scene. It might be taking a walk beforehand to clear your head, to relax, to take in the world. And I think it can even be something like reading one of your favorite authors. And if you do that before every single time you're writing, you're actually bringing things in your mind that you can work with and that you can put onto the page. And I think all these would work. And you could disagree with me that some of these wouldn't work, but I think all these will help you get to that point. Now, I think that tinkering, or especially imagining how your scene plays out, is especially good. I think it's especially useful because if you imagine how your scene plays out, you are walking yourself through a process. You're walking yourself through an experience. You're taking away the stress of writing. You're taking away the expectations of writing, and you have that perfect picture of what's supposed to happen in your book, if that makes sense. We all have this ideal of what we want our books to do. And when we are daydreaming, we can play that ideal out in our mind. And then when we sit down to write, we actually have something to work with. We actually have gone through the experience we want our characters and our readers to go through. Maybe you don't think this will work. Well, what if I told you to write about your own experience making eggs this morning? And yes, we're anti-vegan here, so I'm sorry if you're vegan. So what if I told you that you need to write about your experience making eggs this morning? Walk me through making eggs, how it feels. Try to express making eggs to me as clearly as possible. And it's probably going to be the case that it is much easier to express that in writing than to express something you've never experienced, right? It's easier to show someone how it feels to make eggs than it is to show someone how it is to be in war if you've never been in war. By playing around with ideas in some way, whether that's actually writing and messing around with stuff, or whether that's walking yourself through something, or whether that's outlining, or even reading your favorite book, I think this is especially powerful because then we take those experiences we've had, we can take those emotions we're going through, and then we can couch them in our narrative, right? We can fit them into what we're already working on, and we're giving ourselves an experience to work with. So we don't have to write about something we've never experienced. We're writing about something that we've experienced in our minds, if that makes sense. If you enjoyed this podcast and you want to support me, there's really one simple thing you can do. You can go to danielpoppie.com/newsletter and sign up for my newsletter. And when you sign up, you'll actually be able to get access to my publication roadmap. So that's everything I have planned for pretty much every project I have into the next decade. Again, that is danielpoppie.com/newsletter. You can also find the link below.